I am Bryce Newberger, and this is the Kinship Chronicles, Children of the Phoenix, Chapter 27. The moon waned on the horizon as evening lamps were lit for dinner. Amora sat at the large table with all manner of food before her. It seemed as if the royal family was having a small feast in her honor, though she couldn't tell if they always ate like this. Her stomach rolled over as she stared wide-eyed at all the food. Across from her was the young boy, Sparren, who was waiting to watch her eat. "Sparren, eat your food," chided Queen Santuosa, who sat at the foot of the table. Sparren looked down quickly and took a forkful of food. The most peculiar habit she had began to notice was that Santuosa had that goggled mummy man follow her everywhere. This time he was standing in the corner of the room. Amora caught herself looking at him and promptly shot her eyes down at her food. She tempted herself to try a bite. Her fork stuck and retrieved a morsel of the succulent-looking meat. She licked her lips and took a bite. It was the best thing she had ever tasted. Caramel had been melted over steak and was seared to perfection. Before she knew it, she was shoving mouthfuls of food into her cheeks. The vegetables tasted like honey. The potato had a sweetness she had never experienced. Like a stray on a bone, she consumed her portion of food. There came a sudden, hearty laughter that filled the room. "Looks like we have a hungry one," the king chuckled as he entered the dining hall. Amora blushed and looked down. King Denigno walked over to her large wooden chair and kneeled so he was at eye level. Amora didn't look up. "Hello, little one. I have been quite worried about you." Finally, she returned his gaze. The king had long hair for a man. It was cut to about his jawline in thick brown strands. His eyes were a light blue that reminded Amora of a winter horizon on a cloudy day. His face looked strong but tired, as if a great weathering had marked a robust statue. She didn't know why, but she smiled at him. She may not have felt it deep within her, but some element of her composition was compelled to lighten up in his presence. Dinner continued on without a word from Amora. In fact, the same treatment carried over the next few days. She observed the family as they went about their business. This was a happy place filled with love. For that very reason, it caused Amora great sadness at times and great satisfaction during others. Uncertain how to handle these emotions, one day she stowed away in her room under her blankets and just wept for hours. She saw her family eating dinner and playing games, camping and celebrating, working and lounging. It was the everyday moments that she missed the most. The way her father used to smile at her, the way Teddy used to furrow his brow when playing with blocks, the way Eldrich used to put his arm around her when they walked home, the way Cal used to look up for mischief in every corner, and the way her mother taught her how to act ladylike. All of that was gone. She had no family. They were dead. She sat among their ashes and clutched them until they were cold. Her sobs turned to gasps for air. A presence entered her palace room and sat at the foot of the bed. Santuosa's voice spoke softly. "I know that we are still strangers to you, and I know we cannot replace what you've lost." The queen began to weep softly. "But I don't know how to put this into words." She stopped and stillness hung openly. "I want you to be my daughter. I want you to be part of our family. I know that calling you a princess and offering you a palace is nothing to make up for what has happened." The sentence ended awkwardly, like there was so much more to say. Amora heard the words, but her mind didn't take their meaning. This lady was kind. This family was nice. But she wanted her mother, her father, her brothers. No, this new family would not do. Amora turned over so her face was sunken deep into her pillow, where she had hoped her breath would just stop. The queen left. Amora was alone. The next day, Amora roamed the halls much as she always did, looking at all the fancy paintings. She heard Sparren whining loudly and complaining. She went to see what the fuss was all about. She saw him aiming a bow and arrow at a target with arrows scattered all around the ground. Not a single arrow was sticking in the hay. She walked up to the range and watched him fail again and again. Amora didn't know it at the time, but she was smirking at him. The boy caught her reaction. "Then why don't you try?" he yelled. Though it really wasn't a question, Amora picked herself up and took the bow and arrow away from him. She straightened her back, stretched her arm out, and pulled the bow back until her elbow was at a 90-degree angle, just as Bryn had taught her and her brothers once while they were camping. Eldrich had mastered it the quickest. He seemed to be a natural. Amora was never great at it, but she was better than Cal, and that had infuriated him. Now she seemed to channel Eldrich. She pictured exactly how her brother used to look. She closed one eye to focus the target, just as her eldest sibling had done. She released the arrow and it stuck in the outermost ring. Not a bullseye, but at least she hit it. Sparren went slack-jaw. Hey, girls aren't supposed to be good at this stuff. Amora gave a derisive look at the boy for his comment. He ignored it. Hey, do you want to try trapping squirrel jacks? I bet I can do better than you. Amora nodded in agreement to the task. The two children ran about the castle courtyard, gathering supplies like sticks and twine. Amora was swept up in the hunt for supplies. The area was like a small walled-in forest. After each one acquired their components, Sparren fashioned a loop around the stick and placed it on the ground with the loop circling an acorn. He then dug the stick deep into the dirt. See, he said proudly, when the squirrel jack grabs the nut, the loop tightens and he's trapped. Amora shook her head unimpressed. She then grabbed her string and tied a big, loose loop. She found a narrow spot under the tree brush where acorns naturally fell and set a loop so that an animal would automatically catch the string while running to get an acorn, just as Eldrich and Cal used to do. Sparren looked at the trap with interest. He inspected the loop, the stick, the acorns, and then said, "That'll never work." Amora gave him another frown. "Anyways, you can see what I caught here in a little bit. Until then, we need to get away from these." The children seemed to be getting along swimmingly. They played in the fishing pond, they ate snacks, and they even played tag. In all events, even eating, Amora seemed more talented than Sparren. She assumed it was probably because he rarely left the palace. They decided to play hide and seek after dinner time and before bed in the late evening. Sparren would hide first, and Amora would try to find him. She counted to 100, in her head, of course, then set off to find him. As she walked casually along the halls looking for hidden passageways, she began to think about this family. They seemed like nice people. A few days ago, she wondered about running away from this family. She decided she would stay a little longer. To her, it seemed that Sparren needed some help being a boy, and it looked like she would have to teach him everything her brothers had taught her. Ah, there, she thought, as she spotted a broom closet. She opened the door, quickly expecting to catch a hidden prince. She was confronted with an empty closet. She furrowed her brow, much like Teddy used to, and then looked up. There was a hatch that had been opened in the roof of the closet, and a small ladder was propped perfectly for someone to climb up. Nice try, Sparren, she thought. She ascended the ladder and found a whole realm of dust and wooden crawl spaces. This place was amazing. It could be her secret place when she needed a good cry or to be alone. She heard some noise coming from deeper within the crawlway. She instinctively followed it. The wooden slats of the attic-like area were spaced so that you could see through them if you placed your eyes right up against them. It was around a corner that she found Sparren looking through the slats. Got him, she thought. She crept up and poked him on the shoulder. Sparren jumped at the intrusion, but then placed his finger over his lips and gave a quiet shush. He then pointed down to where he was looking, and both children spied on the noise they could hear. Down below them was the antechamber of Grexus, the Archmage. Thank you for listening. I'm Bryce Newberger, and this has been the Kinship Chronicles, Children of the Phoenix. If you enjoyed what you heard and you'd like to purchase the full book, then either look up New Books on the Google Play bookstore, NEU Books, or simply click the link in the description. The book is only $5, and I appreciate your support.